Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to show you some care tips that I have for your succulent plants. Now, succulents were actually something that I used to always kill, so I'm not going to say that I'm an expert for whatever reason. The 3 succulent plants that I have survived my care. So I wanted to kind of give you a couple of tips that I have when it comes to succulent care, but also have the primary focus of this video be what do you do when your succulent becomes elongated, or in this case, the lower foliage has, aged and dropped off, so now you have this kind of lanky stem. A couple things that you want to keep in mind when it comes to succulents is they do need bright light. As far as their soil conditions go, you want to make sure that you use a specific cactus soil mix. They do not like to sit in water, so they do not want soil that is going to become compacted over time or that holds on to a lot of moisture. So the cactus soil mixes that you can buy are often fast draining and they don't retain a lot of moisture, just enough to obviously get the plant the water that it needs, but then it flushes it out through the soil. So those are a couple really important things when it comes to succulents. Another thing that I will say is succulents don't like to have their foliage sit in water. It will rot over time, so make sure that when you are watering, you're not watering the foliage of the plant, but that you're getting right down to the root ball. Those are basically my tips that I can give you as far as growing succulents. They're really low maintenance, easy care plants if you give them the right environment to grow in. So like I said, today's focus is going to be more so on how do you care for your succulents once they've gotten to this stage. So this is a good example of how the plant has just elongated through its growing process. Perhaps it was reaching a little bit too far for some light, and then the lower foliage has dropped off. So I'm going to show you my tips on how to get this back to being a more lush, rounded plant. Alright, for this project you're going to need a good pair of scissors. Eventually you will need some cactus soil mix, and then also just like a towel or a paper towel to lay your cuttings on. So what we're going to be doing is with each of these plants, let me get it to focus here. So as you can see, we've got some pretty long stems until it gets to the succulent. So what we're going to be doing is actually cutting these off, and then we're going to take that cutting and let it sit for a few days so it can callus over, and then you're going to plant these in new soil so that they can continue to grow and be a lush plant. The reason why we want to let these callus over for a couple days, and by callus I mean where you're cutting it or where you've taken off any of the foliage along the stem, you want to let that callus over, meaning let it get hardened. The reason why you want to do that is because if you cut the succulent and put it right into soil, there's potential for it to get rot because those fresh cuts have moisture in them, and so they are going to potentially rot. So letting them callus over keeps the rotting process from happening, and I promise your succulent will be fine if it's sitting for a couple days to callus over. It will also be fine when you plant it in the soil and those wounds have calloused over. So an interesting thing with succulents is that when you propagate them, so propagating means, cutting a piece of a plant, and there's many different plants that you can do this with. There's many different ways that you can propagate a plant, but succulents in particular, the way to propagate that is to, like I said, we're going to cut it, let it callus over, and then plant it in new soil. One of the interesting things about succulents, as well as many other plants that you can propagate, is wherever there was, obviously where you're cutting it off the stem, and then anywhere you see, let me see if I can get this to focus on. So anywhere you see where like a piece of foliage has either been taken off or removed, these little nodes, as we call them, those will actually sprout roots once you plant it in the dirt. So it's a really interesting thing. These little cuttings here are ones that I did cut from this plant a while ago, and then propagated them. So these have been in this container for, I want to say, at least 3 months, just establishing roots. and they're doing great, as you can see. So I haven't lost a single cutting. So that's essentially what we're going to be doing with these plants. So let's go ahead and get started. See, this one has an elongated stem, so we're going to go ahead and cut this one about, leaving about an inch or so of the stem on there. All right, so as you can see, I did leave part of the stem. What we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and set these on a paper towel, and this is where they will lay to callus over. One other thing I wanted to point out when you are doing your cuttings is look for any foliage like this one here that is kind of on its way out. You want to remove that. And then if you do have any foliage, like, you know, this one in particular has a nice long stem, but sometimes where you have to cut it, there are some pieces of foliage kind of still on that stem there. You can absolutely remove those. All you do is you just pinch it off on the stem like that, and then there you go. I wanted to show you what I'm going to do with this plant here. So obviously this is a larger plant. It has only one stem. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this off here, and then I'm just going to replant this entire large succulent. Quite honestly, I have not tried to do one from this size of a plant, so we'll see if it survives. I hope it does. These are succulents that I've had for a little over a year, so like I said earlier in the video, I'm not always good at keeping succulents alive, but I've been very successful with these ones, and I love them. All right, so I'm gonna let these sit for a couple of days to callus over, and then I'll show you the next step. It has been a couple days, and everything is calloused over. You can see that this part is hard. There's no moisture coming out of it or anything like that, so they are good to go. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our pot, fill it with soil, and then we're gonna just plunk this thing down into the soil, and then we should be good to go. And there you have it. Those are my quick care tips and also guide to propagating succulents. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. If you'd like to see more videos related to indoor plants or gardening, please think about subscribing to my channel. I would really appreciate it. And go ahead and share this video with any friends or family. Let me know what you thought of the video down in the comments below, and also leave me any questions you might have when it comes to indoor plants, succulents, or gardening. I'd love to answer them for you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.